Hello and welcome. I have got the pleasure of speaking today with the lovely Barry Phillips, who is going to be with us at our conference on the 15th of 17th of March 2023 this year. And yeah, he's going to be one of our amazing speakers. So Barry, do you want to tell us a little bit about you, who you are, just a little bit of your background, anything that occurs to you, share a little bit about you.
Okay, great question. I think kind of my three principles story will probably give you a bit of a good grounding, a good bit of background in that I've been in the personal development arena now for nearly 30 years, running a company that supplies all the great books by all the great authors that lots and lots of us have listened to and read over these years, people like Wayne Dyer and Napoleon Hill and Susan Jeffers and Stephen Covey. And that's been my passion. My passion was always selling and sharing the knowledge in books and CDs, not just for other people's benefits, but also my own. My life has changed for the better lots and lots of times where I've listened to something or I've heard something. And so I was always passionate and I was always seeking. I would call myself a seeker, always seeking information, seeking knowledge, wanting to know how life worked, basically. And probably 3.5 years ago now, I stumbled across the three principles. I stumbled across it through the book Somebody Should Have Told Us by Jack Pransky. And I was intrigued. I really was intrigued. And I jumped into Sydney Banks's material, believing that, as I've always believed, that as near to the source as I can get is what I want to go for ultimately. So I listened to a lot of Sid's material. I read several of the books, not every one of them, but several of them. And I got to be honest, I heard absolutely nothing from Sid, nothing from the audio, nothing from the books. And I actually I can remember feeling quite frustrated with that. And I remember sharing it with somebody one time. I was trying to tell her that the three principles was great, but I couldn't really understand why. I couldn't explain why. And I certainly couldn't tell her anything that I learned from Sydney Banks, although Sydney Banks was obviously, kind of like responsible for the majority of what I was trying to explain. So it was just a jumbled mess, basically. And that's how I felt about it in my own mind. And I left it. I left it and I revisited it again. And I was very fortunate that I did a couple of things. So I went to the 3PGC conference in London, where I met both yourself and Beck, Deb. And you told me about your retreat coming up. And I said, I'll be there. And I was. And at that retreat, I met a lovely couple, Mark and Colette Dennis. And it was Mark that really, at that point, kind of marked my card, as so to speak, in that he shared with me that what I was trying to do was trying to understand this from Sid. And that wasn't the way to do it. Don't listen to the words. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but I was trying to get it. Like I got all these other things, all these other modules, all these other books and CDs that I'd studied. I'd always got them. I had to get them. Right, I'll learn that and I'll do that and I'll implement A, B, C, and then my life will be better. And it was with a lot of those things, Yeah. But this was different, and I didn't realize that. So he was the first person that really pointed out that this was different. And I still, to this day, have to remind myself I don't have to do anything. Just let it evolve. It's effortless. And as I say, I still have to remind myself of that. So yeah, I guess that's how I came across it. I mean, since then I've been staying in the conversation. I think another thing that Beck shared with me very, very early on, and you both shared with me, was to stay in the conversation. And again, I flitted in and out of the conversation probably for that first year. Didn't necessarily, but I could always notice it. I'd noticed that I wasn't feeling quite as good. I wouldn't say I was in a low mood, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I was probably a 5. I was operating on a 5 or a 6, Whereas whenever I got back into the conversation, I felt I was operating on an 8 or a 10 or 8 to 9, 8 to 10, 8, 9, 10. So again, probably within a year, I'd realised, yeah, I need to stay in this conversation. And kind of that's what I've done ever since then. So I've attended retreats like your own. I've done several things with 3PGC conferences. I'm an apprentice practitioner with them. And I've just done a real deep dive into Sydney Banks's material, which was basically studying all of the 6 books of his. Really studied with a lot of the original, the original people that share the 3 principles. And yeah, I just love deepening my understanding now of it, and see that being really focused, which is what I always thought I used to have to be. And what I've realised is that it can be effortless. It can just be a case of listening to something on a regular basis, checking in on meetups, checking in at a conference, going to a retreat, reading something on a regular basis. And I don't do something every day, by the way. I don't feel I need to, but and I also get to the point sometimes where I feel I'm full up. So that's another, I guess, a lesson learned within the 3 principles. But now I'm very keen just to continue to deepen my understanding. And one of the things that was really key for me last year was to attend your conference, to attend the conference that we're running this year in March. It really deepened my understanding. And I did that in 2 ways. I did it by being a speaker. So what I shared when I was on stage was helping me to deepen my understanding. And then when I was listening to everybody else, I was deepening my understanding. And so I would encourage anybody to go to this year's conference just to do that. If you know the 3 principles, if you've got, no matter what level you're at, because the other thing I've realized recently, we have infinite levels of consciousness. And when you think about that, that means that it's just a case of staying in the conversation, because it just gets better and better. And
when you think it can't get any better, it does.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the way it works. That's how it works. So yeah, I guess that's kind of a bit of a background, but it's also a big plug for the conference, because as I said, ultimately one of the best things I did last year was to attend that conference, and the feeling coming away from it that both myself and Carol were in was just phenomenal. It was, we both said, what a great 3 days, and I know I had insights after that. I don't think I had insights at the time that I was aware of. I possibly did, but certainly after that, I did have some insights. And again, that's the other benefit of being in a room of like-minded people sharing the stuff that we share.
Now, I know you have absolutely been plugging the conference there, and thank you very much, because obviously this is very much. But if there is someone listening to this and they're kind of like, oh, it's 3 days, and what is this? And I don't know, will I benefit from this? Should I come? What would you say if someone was on the fence a little bit like that? What would be, what would you share with somebody in that sense?
That's a great question as well. I mean, several things come to mind. So if I go back to this time last year, when I was going to the conference, I just booked to go to the conference for the first time. Again, something that I heard, I couldn't attribute it to anybody in particular, but something I heard was to turn up with no agenda. And I didn't. I turned up with a totally open mind, with no agenda. But I also knew I was going to be in the right place at the right time, and that, if I'm ready for anything, if I'm ready for any insights, then I was going to get them. You know, I was putting myself in a beautiful environment. Yeah, as I say, with like-minded people, sharing what's helped them. And quite often when you're hearing those stories, what tends to happen is you quieten your own mind because it's a beautiful space. And when that happens, that's when we get the insights. You know, that's when insight happens in most cases. And that was certainly my case. So to fully answer the question, I guess I think it's for everybody. Anybody will benefit. I can't pinpoint and point to exactly how you'll benefit, but you know, if there's anything that you are questioning in your own life, needing a new direction, you're going to get the answers at an environment like the conference.
What I'm hearing in that, and in quite a bit of what you've shared, actually, you know, shared about your journey and your journey with books. And like you, I absolutely adore books. I think they're absolutely brilliant, and I love being a human, and I love reading books and implementing things. I think that's great, and I absolutely think there is a place for that. But what I really love, and what I think is slightly different about what it is we share, and what was coming to me when you were sharing was the word foundations, and like the underpinning. And it's a little bit, I know for me, since, you know, as I deepen my understanding of the principles of looking in this direction, as I do that, what it feels like to me is that being human and doing all the fun things that human beings do, you know, running a business. I'm a grandma. I've got 2 awesome little grandchildren. I've got 3 grown-up children. You know, we have great fun, and you know, the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations of being a family and elderly parents and all the everything that kind of goes with life, all of those things. But what I see is this understanding seems to be a really, really solid foundation to build on. And, you know, with any house, I mean, I'm not a builder, but my partner, Russ, he's a builder, and I know, you know, he does stuff. And a lot, like building a life, building anything, there are trials and tribulations in that. But if you've got a strong foundation that you are building on, something that you can continually come back to, something that you can continually ground yourself in, you know, building the house, anything that you do, building your life, what you do out in the world, it feels very, very different doing it from a space. And what I would say has really happened for me since coming across this understanding is I feel like I have strong foundations, and I feel like deepening my understanding, and that staying in the conversation, and that those levels and everything that you're talking about, it feels to me that that's what gets firmer and stronger. And a bit like a trees, you know, they grow huge, you know, they're massive, but they also have a huge root system. They have something really, really strong to build all that on. And it really feels to me that the principles, this understanding, whatever, you know, whatever words you want to put on that, it feels like that's what we're building. We're building those incredibly strong roots so that tree can grow really, really tall.
Yeah, I love that analogy, Deb. That's beautiful. And picking back up on that and expanding on that. So one of the things that I find amazing about trees and about the root system of trees is that they all feed each other. And that is just amazing. And that's actually what we do at the conference. We feed each other. And the other thing which came to mind there, listening to you, Deb, was if I had to put it into one word, what will you get from the conference? It's inspired, inspiration. Because every time I put myself in that rich situation, rich room, whatever you want to call it, rich, you know, richness of people, that's what I get. I get inspired, or inspiration. So if I had to put it into one word, that's what I think people will get.
Yeah, and what I love about that is we get inspiration for where we are and what we want. You know, earlier on when I said, you know, what would you say to someone, and you said this conference is for anyone. And what I have seen in conversations I have had, you know, we've run this conference 3 times, and retreats and all sorts of things, and what I see is people get inspiration that is a perfect fit for them, for where they are in that moment, you know, from being in this rich, beautiful conversation, for being in that room, you know, whatever it is that is going on in your life, what, you know, whatever it is that you want to change, whatever it is that feels like it could be better, whatever it is. And that is across the board, you know, from people with mental health issues, from people, you know, struggling with relationships, from people, you know, building a business, people want whatever it is, it seems, even just better connection with people, whatever it is, the insights and the inspiration and what you walk away with is so perfect for you, because like the feedback from people when they've been at these things is, oh my gosh, and then they share whatever it was they've seen or something that's happened for them. And I think one of the things about this is, it's not like, often when people share what they have done, the magic isn't in what they have done, it's in exactly what you were saying. The magic is in the inspiration to do what they did, because what they have done was just what they did, and that could be different for someone else. You know, if somebody is suffering from depression or struggling in some way in their life, or somebody wants to build a business and wants to or somebody wants to, you know, have a better relationship, connect better with their children or their partner or anything, it might, you know, you can turn to a book and you can kind of think, oh, somebody might know the answer for what for me to do next. But it is, what I think is fantastic is the inspiration. What I might do might be entirely different to what you might do, even if our problem on the surface looks as if it's the same problem. What we might do might be totally different. And I think that is one of the amazing things about this conversation, is the inspiration, the insight that you get is perfect for you and for what you want.
Mm.
I love that. Well, I don't know how long we've been talking, but that was a beautiful conversation. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing. I am really, really excited to be in the room. I know it's just going to be an absolutely fantastic 3 days, and I can't wait to be in that room with you, Barry. So thank you so much for speaking with me today.
You're welcome. I'll see you then.
If I don't see you before, I will see you then.